Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat. Today I'm going to do my very belated January wrap-up. My daughter is sleeping. She has been really hard to get down this whole week, so I'm so hesitant to wake her up. So if I'm talking a little quietly, that is why, because she's sleeping in the next room. But we're going away this weekend, so I do not have time to film. So without further ado, let's get into it without saying anything else. So January I read 9 books, 8 that I read all the way through and 1 that I DNF'd. We have a thriller, a fantasy, and then the rest are romance, queer romance mostly. So the first one I read is They Never Learn, which is by Layne Fargo. So this is following an English professor at a university named Scarlett, who moonlights as a serial killer of shitty men. So one of my goals this year, unofficial goals, is to read more books featuring female killers or like female assassins, even better if they're queer. So when I found out that this had a queer element in it, I was immediately intrigued. I read this, I think, in 2 days, and I really liked it because it's dual perspective. So one is Scarlett, who I mentioned, and the other one is Carly, I believe, who is a student at the university, and she's like discovering her own self-identity and learning to be away from her like family. So I gave it 4 stars. I thought that obviously Scarlett's point of view was the one that I was most intrigued about because she's just a badass in general. Like, I would have loved to see a movie about her. That would be awesome. The only reason it doesn't get higher though is because I saw, I think, all of the twists coming, which is no bad thing because I still really enjoyed the ride, but for a thriller you don't exactly want to be able to guess the endings, or maybe I've just read too many thrillers, but either way. Oh yeah, and then a certain part of the end where someone believes a certain thing or someone reacts a certain way about something, I was like, there's no way that would happen in real life, but I'm gonna suspend my disbelief for this queer moment. So yeah, that's why it gets 4 stars. Next up is the DNF. So this is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. This is following a Mamawati, like a mermaid, and her story. I should have known better because this is YA. So I made it, I believe, 50% of the way through, and then I was just like, I cannot do it. I just can't. So there was like insta love and also like very, what's it called, serendipitous happenings where it's like, okay, maybe once, but like it happened like 5 times in a row where they'd be in massive trouble and then something would just come out of the blue and save them or something like that. So it was not for me. It was DNF, and I'm sad about it because the cover is amazing. Yeah. So now we're gonna get into the romance, starting out with the most effed up one, I think. And my romance kind of went like this: up and then down. So this is The Dare by Harley LaRoux. The reason I picked it up was because I was feeling bad about the DNF, so I wanted a romance, and this one just caught me by the throat. It like came out the day that I read it, I think. I saw it on my Kindle, and I was like, that cover is amazing. So this is kind of a not for everyone book. This is a public humiliation / kink novella. And the author explicitly states that it's not meant to be an accurate depiction of BDSM. It's like a few months after high school graduation, and in those months people have grown up to be a little bit different than they were in high school. So we're following the super popular girl who was like the captain of everything, and the boy that she used to bully, who is kind of this like alternative guy. He wears all black and he wears like big combat boots, like typical. And they both are at this party and they're playing, I think, beer pong, and he dares her to be his, like, to listen to everything he says all night. So she doesn't want to back down, so she accepts, and that leads us into the events of the book. So there are a lot of triggers, and I just wrote them down from the book blurb because the author does list them out. So it's erotic humiliation, fear play, pain play, knife play, consensual non-consent, orgasm denial, boot worship, spanking, crying, blowjobs, clowns, group sex activities, spit, bondage, public play, and blood play. So like there is a lot, but I think if you read really dark romance or like BDSM romance, then it sounds bad, like everything I just said sounds bad, but in reality it's really not that bad, if that makes sense. So I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I thought it was like a good read for what I wanted. I just wanted something that I could sink my teeth into, read quickly, and just, yeah, be really interested in the story, and it certainly was that. So then after that, I read an arc that I had, The Other Brother by Calder, who is a New Zealand author. So The Other Brother is an MM, like kind of summary romance where we're following this guy who is kind of really laid back. He doesn't really have any life plans. He's in high school. I think it's his junior year. So he's offered to stay at his half-sister's family's house, if that makes sense, because it's on the beach. So he goes to relax and surf, and when he's there, his arch nemesis slash like rival shows up, and he's like a music prodigy, and they are not related, but the family tree is very interesting because it's like, okay, they each are the brothers to the same sister, but they themselves are not related, if that makes sense. Like parents, and then they both divorced, and then you know what okay, yeah, they're not related, and they're not in the same family, although they share a sister. Yeah, there's like this arch rivalry between them, but they spend more time together and they make a deal. He'll teach the music prodigy how to surf if the music prodigy teaches him guitar. So they spend more time together. It's a really sweet, slow burn. I really loved the setting. Like, I just love any ocean, water, surfing type of settings. And the reason that I give it 4 stars is because I loved everything I just said. But there's a really toxic like family element where the parents who are divorced, they like can't stand each other, and their bickering kept bringing me out of the story. I don't really like really toxic bickering in my romances. I would just not have that. Yeah, so 4 stars, but then I really liked the way Calder wrote, like the two main characters. So then I went back and I was like, I'm gonna read their whole backlist. So I did. So I don't know what I was thinking. I was in a very romance mood and I was really tunnel focused, so I decided to read the second in a series because it sounded interesting. I don't know why I read the second one first, but it's Playing at Home by Calder. So this one follows a rugby player and his Manny. So the rugby player recently separated from his wife, and she hires this Manny that just came from London to be closer to his grandma and escape like ex-drama, and he's gonna take care of their twin girls who are I think 4 or 5. And again, this is like a very sweet MM sports romance. I'm not really into rugby, but the rugby elements didn't really detract from it, so I think if you love rugby, this would be right up your alley. If you don't like rugby, it's still a great, like, sweet story. It was made all the sweeter by, like, the twins. I just love seeing any parent figure or caretaker figure who really loves being with kids. So, yeah, that was really sweet. And then I went backwards and I read the number 1, which is Playing Offside. Oh, I gave that 4 stars. And I also gave this one 4 stars. So I read Playing Offside, which is, again, rugby. It's the same series, but it's the Ice King, who's like one of the best rugby players in the world, and the new up-and-comer who just made the team, who's also vying for the same spot, and kind of their romance. So this is like grumpy sunshine, hot and cold, age gap, and yeah, I really loved this one. There was one scene in particular that I reread so many times because I was like, one of the things I love is like when a character is in danger and then the other character makes like an unexpected public declaration, and I'm just like, oh, it was so good. I love that. Yeah, so I also gave that one 4 stars as well. And then to finish up the Calder-ness, I did read the novella The Inappropriate Date, which unfortunately is the start of the downhill. It's about this guy who needs a date for his sister's wedding. His mom tells him to bring someone appropriate, which means like not a man. He's like, I'm gonna show her. So he goes to this guy that like asked him out on a date and asked him to go to the wedding with him. It was just too short. Like if it had been a full book, I think I would have loved it. It was just too short though to like care over much for any of the characters, and there was also mega insta love. So I gave it 3.5 stars, and then after that I continued my downward trajectory and I read Dad's Omega Best Friend by Amy Wineheart. And I should not have picked this book up really. Like I really just shouldn't have. I just shouldn't have picked it up. So it's in an Omega-verse, and we're following this guy who's a professor at a university, but he's an Omega who's been like severely abused in the past, like physical and mental abuse. Physical abuse, which actually left him with an arm that is shorter than his other arm, as well as like a lot of scars and trauma. And his best friend has a son, and that son is going to go to like an internship program or a summer program at the university. So he says the son can stay with him during that internship, and the son happens to be an alpha. We can all see where this is going. Anyway, the tropes keep on coming because there's a flood, so the guest bedroom is flooded, of course. So there's shared close proximity, there's age gap, there's alpha omega, there's what's it called? Only one bed. And yeah, so I don't know. It was okay. So I gave it 3 stars. So then after that, because I was like, darn, I'm on a downward trajectory and I want to just read a romance that I know is going to be good, I actually reread something, which is rare for me. I reread Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, which is one of my favorite age gap romances of all time. If not, yeah, one of the top 2. It's following this girl, and her boyfriend is a piece of shit and gets them kicked out of their apartment, and then his dad offers for them to live in his house until they get back on their feet, basically. And the main character is just so wonderful because she's working so hard to go to school and study, and she works at a bar, but she just wants to work, get the money, study, and get out of town. And when she's staying in the house though, sparks start to fly between her and her ex's dad. And his name is Pike, and he is the owner of a construction company. He like owns the house and he landscapes and everything like that. And I just love this book. I love this book so much. It's not really that forbidden because they're broken up, but I mean, I guess like my ex-boyfriend's dad is the main trope, which sounds kind of tacky, but this book is so good. And I highly recommend it to basically everyone. It is actually just so sweet. Just so sweet and a little spicy, but mostly very sweet. Yeah, and the ending kicked ass as always. So that's what I read. And if you're wondering like, why did you read so much romance? My daughter is going through a sleep regression right now. So it was really bad those weeks, and I also was sick, so I just wanted romance. But I am glad to say that in February I am reading a lot of horror. Horror is the main genre, and I'm reading some really good ones that I'm going to be really excited to talk to y'all about. But I hope that you're having an amazing day, and I will chat to you later. Lots of love. Bye!